straight from the high school to tell this story. This is a teacher who does not stop. And she's going to go home and take it easy this weekend. Okay. Where are my glasses? Anybody? Oh, there they are.
I was like, did I put them on my head? No. Oh, no.
Okay. Our next storyteller is a regular at the Reboot. You guys, Rebooters know Jean Moelter. She has been performing stories and stand-up comedy on local stages for years and is usually pretty funny. We all agree about that. You can check out her hilarious audiobook, Holy Crap, Memoir of a Catholic Girl, wherever you get your audiobooks with 20 fabulous stories. And I asked Jean to tell this particular story tonight. Some of you who are loyal, regular Rebooters might remember this. I loved this story, and I made a special request for an encore presentation of this story, Adventure on the Very High Seas, because we did not have a sea story. And what's a wet night without a sea story? So please welcome Jean Moelter with Adventure on the Very High Seas.
Thank you. It is so lovely to be here in front of all you good people. And let's thank Rocky for pulling this off once again. Well, our younger son is a very talented artist. And when he was 11 years old, he went through a phase where he drew finely detailed pictures of old-timey ships and raggedy sailors and fierce pirates. But he had never been sailing until one day I saw an article in the paper that a historic ship was coming to Morro Bay called Lynx. And you could sign up for either a dockside tour or an afternoon voyage. And I signed us up for the voyage, which took place on a beautiful blue sunny day in October, a Saturday afternoon, and all the passengers gathered at the dock. There were about 40 of us. Only 3 of them were children, and among the passengers were 2 old-timey wenches, 2 voluptuous middle-aged women who actually came in costume with the roughly bodices and the voluminous skirts and capes, and one of them had long red hair and the other one had 2 braids with ribbons entwined in them, and they weren't the only ones in costume because the crew was all in costume too, and the sailors had raggedy, dirty clothes and scraggly hair and beards, and one of them gathered us to give us some information about this ship. It was a beautiful ship, 100 feet long, wooden replica of a schooner, a naval schooner from the War of 1812. 2 tall masts, and he gave us a few nautical terms and pointed out some things about the ship, and our son. And by the way, my kids do not like me using their names in my stories and comedy, so I will call this son the artist. So the artist stood there on the dock looking up at this guy, this scraggly sailor, as he gave us this information, and his big blue eyes were sparkling and a big grin on his face, and it was just like one of his drawings come to life. And so then the captain didn't address the passengers, but he inspired respect, kind of marching around on the deck with his button-down tight blazer and his jaunty cap, and pretty soon he ordered us all aboard. And the sailors had us line up in 2 long lines either side, because it was our job to hoist up those sails. And the artist braced his little sneakers on the deck and just hoisted with all his might, with that kind of scratchy, authentic rope. And the only people not hoisting were the two wenches who were seated on top of the cabin relaxing. And pretty soon we're gliding through the bay, and it was the most gorgeous day. It was not just bright blue, sunny, warm. The water was calm, almost like glass, and the people in the boats all around us were so excited to see us glide by, and they waved and kind of cheered, and we waved back, so proud of our ship. And the artist was just filled with wonder, and I'm telling you, it was a magnificent sight. These white sails flapping against the blue sky, and the seagulls wheeling overhead. And I thought, oh, I wish this day would never end. And I also thought, I am a great mom. So we glide through the bay, and then we get to the part where there's the otters, that little bend. And now we're heading out to sea. How exciting! And on one side of us, the port side, lies the dune, the sand dune. And then on the starboard side, there's the more rock, and there's the jetty. And we're gliding through this passageway. And all of a sudden, I'm telling you, it was a matter of seconds, everything went from total calm to total chaos. All hell broke loose. The ship heeled way over, giant swells, howling wind, waves crashing over us. The sailors scrambling around, yelling at us to gather amidship, stay away from the railing. But there was no seating for the passengers. So we were just sort of clinging to the cabin. Now, the artist was small for his age, more like an 8-year-old than an 11-year-old. I was terrified that he would be washed overboard by one of these waves and swallowed up in the swells because he wasn't wearing a life jacket. None of us were wearing life jackets. So I sort of planted my feet and put them in front of me, between me and the cabin. I laid my arms across the top of the cabin and just kind of froze there, just terrified that he'd be washed overboard. And this went on up and down these swells, and each time there was a particularly big swell, the passengers would sort of shriek and then kind of laugh nervously, like this is sort of fun, like it was just a ridiculously unpredictable roller coaster. So we're going up and down and up and down, and then I decided I should check on the artist, and so I kind of went like this, checked his little face, which was now a pale green, and he said, I think I'm going to throw up. I looked around. There was a stack of plastic buckets nearby. I grabbed one, slapped it down, and his head disappeared in it, and it stayed in there for quite some time. And I thought, I am a terrible mother. Oh my God, this was all my idea. He's having an awful time, and now I've put both our lives in danger. Why did I do this? We go on, up and down the swells. Suddenly, there's like an odd swell or something, and the ship lurches, and a whole group of passengers on the deck fall down and slide. And now they're in a pile. They're in a human pile. On the opposite, the downward, I don't know what the nautical word is, the downward side of the ship. They're in a pile against the railing. And the sailors rush over, the barefoot sailors are just running they rush over, they pull the bodies up, and this woman starts screaming. Now the wenches have a good view of this whole scene, and they narrate it for the rest of us. And they say that this woman has broken her leg. And they say that the sailors have fetched a stretcher from somewhere. They're lashing her to the stretcher, and they're lashing the stretcher to the ship so that she won't be washed overboard. And you know what? I'm secretly kind of glad about this whole situation. I think you can imagine why. And I say to the artist, well, now at least the captain will have to turn back. And one of the wenches says, He better not. I'm having a great time and I want my money's worth.
Oh.
It's a heartless wench. So we continue on, heading straight out to sea. They were right. The captain did not turn around, heading straight out to sea, up and down these swells, up and down the swells. And then I realize that I'm feeling sick. And not just nauseous, but this is a theme we've got going here. We didn't plan it, people. But I'm kind of hot and sweaty and clammy, even though I'm being doused with freezing cold water every few seconds. I'm hot and sweaty and clammy, and I realize I might faint. But if I faint, who's going to keep the artist from going overboard? And I'm about to ask the wenches to save my son when we hear one of the sailors call out, "Fire in the galley!" And the artist lifts his head out of the bucket and says, "There's a fire?" And some of the passengers are kind of murmuring, talking among themselves, and they think it's like a put-on to teach us about what life was like at sea in the 19th century. But no, there's black smoke billowing out of the cabin. And I remember from all my historical novels that I read all the time, how many ships, thousands of ships, lost at sea over the centuries due to fire. But this one was put out quickly using a 21st century fire extinguisher. So, crisis averted. Sailors call down the ship, "Fire doused in the galley! Fire doused in the galley!" Up and down the swells we go. Finally, the sailors announce that we all have to duck our heads, get down, because we're coming about. And I know that means that the ship is turning around. So I know this voyage is about half over. And they also want us to all move to the other side of the ship. So we start, all of us, 40 of us, like sliding and crawling across the wet deck. And the artist and I end up right near an old-timey cannon, like a big metal brass cannon that's bolted to the deck. And my heart, leaps a little bit because I know that this cannon's not going anywhere. And so I tell the artist to wrap his arms around the cannon, and I wrap my arms around the cannon, and that's how we were for the remainder of the voyage, kind of frozen on the cannon as one wave after another crashes over us. And the artist and I became emotionally and physically numb for a while until I realized he was shivering, and he was shivering badly. And it occurred to me that this could be medical, this could be a serious medical situation. And I tried to wave down one of the sailors to come over and treat him for hypothermia. But I can't catch anybody's attention. But the wenches have moved too. And one of them starts untying her cape. And she tosses it to me and she says, "Take this, m'lady. 'Tis polar fleece. 'Twill keep him warm." And I wrapped the artist in this cape, and in fact, it did help. On and on we go, but at least we're heading back to Morro Bay, so I have hope in my heart. And the sailors then begin to sing sea shanties, which is probably in their contract. And the wenches know all the lyrics, so they sing along. And then they come to, "What do we do with a drunken sailor?" And I happen to know that one. And I think it will be, kind of heartening for the artist to hear me sing. So I join in. But when we get to the line, "Early in the morning," the wenches sing, "Early in the morning," like the old English. And I realize I'm totally out of my league. I just drop out of the singing because, it hadn't even occurred to me to dress in costume for this voyage. And I just want to say that the wenches were still perfectly relaxed and happy, as if they actually were from the 19th century and this was their life. You know, sea voyages on rough seas. So on and on we go until we can see Morro Bay. And one of the passengers points out that there's a harbor patrol boat following us. And then a few minutes later, there's a Morro Bay Fire Department boat following us. So we're going back into shore with this entourage. And when we pass by Morro Rock and the jetty, I want to tell you, in just a few seconds, the whole situation reverses itself. And we go from chaos to calm. The ship rights itself. And it's like there's no waves, no howling wind, nothing. It was weird. It was like some sort of weird science fiction portal or something. And so now everything's okay again. And everybody kind of stands up and, kind of assesses the situation. But the poor woman with the broken leg is still lashed to the ship. And the artist and I kind of pull ourselves off the can. We're kind of frozen to the can and just stiffly stand up. And the artist says something like, "That was fun," and I'm smiling too, because I can see terra firma a few hundred yards away, and no one can make me leave it ever again. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Jean. You see why I brought that story back? Definitely had to hear it a second time, even better the second time. Thank you so much.